Hey, what's up? This is Mark Lopes from Metal Church of Ross the Boss Band. Let us pray. And you're listening to Aftershocks TV. And don't forget to keep it fucking metal. Yeah.
Great. All right, Aftershocks TV, thanks for joining me for another episode this week. As I'd like to welcome my guest today. You all know him as the frontman for the Godfathers of New York Hardcore, the mighty Agnostic Front. And he's here to talk about his new book. It's titled With Time, the Roger Miret Archives. The man himself, Roger Miret, joins me today. What's up, Roger? Thanks for coming, man. Appreciate it.
What's going on, man? Thanks for having me. Appreciate you.
Absolutely, man. Well, let's get right to it, Roger, man. As I just mentioned, With Time, the Roger Miret Archives, it's out now for everyone to go check out and purchase. And with time, it captures never-before-seen photos, flyers, and personal stories that document the rise of Agnostic Front and the band's enduring impact as the undisputed Godfathers of Hardcore. So, Roger, man, we're talking about 40-plus, years here of physical and visual history of your career wrapped up here in one book, man. So my first question is, were these flyers, these posters, all the memorabilia that's in the book, were these things that you had just kind of hung on to over the years? Was a lot of it from friends, family, and maybe fans of the band? Just kind of get into that, if you don't mind.
Probably 90-something% of it is all my stuff that I hung out for through all these years. I acquired a couple of things a little bit later on. Really not much. It's just a miracle that I've kept all this stuff and this stuff as well as other stuff. I've got my whole record collection. I've had every other flyer, everything show I've ever went to since early 80, whatever.
Wow.
And so I managed to keep all this stuff, and I guess I hoarded it through so many years. But I just love it. I love going back to it. Still love going through it. Still love reconnecting with it. It's my life. It tells my story. So I love it, man.
Yeah, no, awesome, man. Well, speaking about your story, we all obviously had a chance to get, a real deep inside look at the trials and the tribulations that you personally faced, moving to the U.S., from Cuba as a youngster with, the book you put out a handful of years ago called My Riot. And, we do hear a lot of times, musicians and artists, when they put out these books and memoirs, when they're putting it together, obviously it requires having to, mentally kind of go back and recall old memories and just recollections of things that you probably sort of, that are tough to kind of conjure up again, things you probably shoved down and didn't want to kind of think about again. So, in regards to, With Time, was that the case with this, or was this more of a celebratory and sort of positively nostalgic sort of situation compared to, what you did with My Riot?
This is more nostalgic because what I did with My Riot was exactly what you said. I didn't know till I started. My Riot took 10 years in the making.
Oh, wow.
And it was very therapeutical for me.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know I was kind of really blackening out all this stuff till I started really digging deep into myself and to my life,
Mm-hmm.
And it was weird because I've always been I'm a very quiet type of guy. And I've mentioned in My Riot, I was always been more of an introverted guy. I guess being in the band, fronting a band has helped me come out of that stuff. But I've always kept to myself. So all of a sudden, here comes My Riot. And I'm about to spill the beans on myself, my whole life and everything. It was weird. Mm-hmm. The day it was released, it was super weird for me because it was just I didn't know I had all this stuff in my head. And all of a sudden, everybody's going to know all this crazy stuff. But at the same time, I really did it for my children and for their children so that, something, for my family so they could have some history, read up about me, stuff like that. Same thing with this book, with Time. With Time is it's a visual aspect of pre-Agnostic Front. Really starts in 77 with Vinny with the Eliminators.
Okay.
It ends around the end of 85, beginning of 86. It's documenting a really important time in history of not only just Agnostic Front, but New York punk, New York hardcore. But it's really focused on the Agnostic Front. And, it's visual. It's a visual journey through it, and so visual that I tell stories that like when I met Vinny, then the early days of the band, and I talk about United Blood, I talk about Victim of Pain. Then all of a sudden I get to this part where there's the diary, a tour diary I kept, And a lot of people didn't know I kept a diary of our first tour. And then now you're reading along the days and everything, seeing the diary entries and stuff like that, and looking at flyers, looking at pictures. And it's kind of cool. You know, the fans kind of are in there with me, you know what I mean? And kind of reading up on what it was like. I mean, like my partner, Todd, who helped put this book together for me. He was like the guy that does all the graphics and stuff like that. He's like, man, I didn't know you guys like fishing that much. Because then we liked it. We had nothing to do. The tour started off with 6 canceled dates. You know what I mean?
Oh, wow.
Like we did a 2.5-month tour and only played like 16 shows. So
Oh, shit.
a lot of fishing time, you know. But you know, then it comes back into the Cause for Alarm, and then kind of ends with us going on tour again in 1986. Really focus on our first tour, that diary, and everything leading up to it, and a little bit after it. But it was it's really cool. It's a beautiful. I mean, I got to see it for the first time this weekend in completion. You know, I never saw it.
Oh, wow.
Especially that deluxe. It's gorgeous. Anybody about the deluxe is going to get floored. It's really a beautiful. It's sold out. It's really a beautiful. Everything that's in the deluxe package, the little box, everything comes in. It's mind blowing. And the actual people who did get to buy the regular books, which we still have, there's still some of them, some first edition. I think it's going to be sold out this weekend, to be honest with you. But we're already working on a second edition.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Edition is about to sell out because Revs just like says that people, they just started shipping and said people are going nuts already for it. So it's just, you know, it's awesome. It's not a cheap book. It's 350 pages, thick. I wanted nothing but quality. Everything I do passionately. I want it great. You know what I mean? But it's a beautiful coffee table book. It's something of you hold. It weighs 4.5 pounds.
Wow. Oh, shit.
You're gonna be like, wow, this is a book. You know,
that's awesome, man. So you were saying you got a second edition coming out. So are those just are you just doing obviously per I guess, you know, era of the band? Like, you know, you said you do it the Cause for Alarm, and then maybe up into the, you know, late 90s, late 80s, early 90s. Talk about that. Yeah.
Well, not yet, really. You know what? I don't think I want to. I think for me, punk itself and hardcore and the early start of crossover and all that stuff, I thought the most interesting part of all that was pre-86. You know what I mean? I thought what I'm saying is, like, by the time 86 came along into 87, everything was like digital. Like all the vinyl things was all gone, really, and the aspects of people like contributing in different ways to the scene. I mean, I grew up in this really like artistic scene, you know, growing up in New York, being part of the New York punk community, like with the Andy Warhols and the Ramones and you know, Blonde, you know, stuff. So there was always a lot of visual part that went along with the music too.
Sure.
So I felt like after 86, a lot of that stuff started, like people weren't really doing as much as they were doing in the early days. You know what I mean? Yeah. So to me, these are the most interesting days of punk and hardcore to me. I'm not trying to knock anything down, but I mean, I felt like, I mean, I've got stuff. I still collect stuff, and I felt like everything that was pre-86 it's awesome to look at, just to even look at, you know?
Yeah, no doubt. Well, let's talk about really, you know, Agnostic Front in terms of when, you know, you and Vinny obviously started up the band. I remember how you said in his book, you know, the foreword you did for his book that just, I know you guys just did a co-book signing together there in New York City. And you said that you guys really wanted to disassociate yourselves from that traditional, you know, the British punk ethos of, you know, destruction and just, you know, live fast, die young thing. And you guys really wanted to come with your own thing, which was a bit more positive and more, you know, uplifting about, you know, maybe making a difference in one's life rather than destroying it. So, I mean, talk a bit about that. I mean, was that really just a purposeful aim that you and Vinny had, you know, and vision you had when you started the band? Or was that just really just a representation of really who you guys were as individuals at that time?
I think it was really a representation. See, if you get the book, when you read the early years, you'll see me talk a little bit about that stuff. What I meant by that is like the early beginning of punk, especially in New York itself, like I was just talking about, very artsy and stuff. It was more like a live fast, die young, very drug orientated, artsy scene. And here we are now. We are the younger generation coming in, and we just wanted something. We loved all that, but we wanted to like now make a difference. And it's not about like live fast. It's about like, you know, we can make it, you know, yeah, fuck the world, but let's make the world a better place, kind of deal, like that kind of
Okay.
deal. And it was only because we were the younger generation coming into an old generation. Now, keep in mind, Vinny was already from that older generation. So Vinny was like, he hung out with us younger kids because he thought we were like wild and crazy and in a different way, and it didn't involve like, the other with the streamline, the regular punks are doing. But I love that whole scene, man. I come from all that. I've got a lot of respect and for the very beginning of punk. I tell people I never got into punk, or it got into me, and ever since it got into me, it's an addiction, I love, and I'm not looking to shake off, man.
Oh yeah, I mean, doing as long as you have, man. Absolutely, I'm sure you're not, man. I mean, you guys keep going strong, and one of the other things I wanted to, just ask you about in terms of the New York hardcore scene too, upon its inception, when you guys were starting, it really, and you mentioned this as well in the forward. It wasn't, about the, the musicianship per se. It was about, as you say, it was about the show. It was all about the show, and that's one of, I think, of the many things that. I personally, growing up in New York, loved about New York hardcore is, I always said that the music, New York hardcore, the music moves you just as much, if not more, and probably more, than listening to or watching, say, an artist or band that's, really technically proficient, at their instruments. And, and you mentioned at one particular moment when you guys opened for, the old band Kraut, that, after you guys played, no one was kind of moving around. And that's when you guys kind of knew, like, all right, we got something going here, So, I mean, how crucial is it, when you're a band and you start and you're coming up, when you're just starting to make some noise, how really important is it, when you're trying to establish yourself as a unit to have that one, pivotal moment, say, that you guys had with that Kraut show where it really just can kind of catapult you, I guess, spiritually and just with your confidence, just to know that, okay, we got something going and we're going to keep going. It's working.
Yeah. And just like you said, Matt, like we were never the best band. We never tried to be the best band. Never wanted to be the number. We were a part of. We really believed in unity in our movement, and I love all the bands. In retrospect, it was about one kind of communion. Our punk scene, New York hardcore. So, with that being said, that one show, I know the show you're talking about was a pivotal moment for me in my life because. The whole time, I mean, this is January, I think it was January 16th or January 3rd, 1984, when our first 7-inch was just out. We're still a relatively young band. Just got our 7-inch, just came out October. Finally, like we're like seeing, wow, people like us. So something's happening. We're doing something. Like when we played with Kraut already had their 2 7-inches out and their LP out, So it was kind of really awesome to see how much support and love we got from this scene. Now, keep in mind that Agnostic Front is always, for some reason, even prior to me even being in the band, was always the people's band. They loved the band. They always thought, the band represented the people. And I think that kind of carried its way still to date. It's like we definitely represent New York hardcore at its hardest. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
So it's somehow something that's people associate New York hardcore and associate, like, who wants to be a part of anything that's bullshit? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know that we're the real deal, and they want to come together with us, kind of deal.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think you just nailed it. I think that's what most people, including myself, when you first really go to a New York hardcore show and you get that feel, that's exactly what I think everybody feels, and you just want to be a part of that. And that's obviously,
and nobody wants to be a part of something that's not real.
Exactly.
Like, well, why? So I've always been genuine. We've been genuine. When you come see us, you treat me the way I treat you the way, like, I don't treat you any different. You treat me the way I want to be treated. You know what I mean? Like, I don't try to be above or anything above anybody else. You know what I mean? Like, it's all about respect and the love of our music, the love of what we all do together collectively in the crowd, in the pit, on stage. I'm not better than you just because I got a mic and I have a stage. This is I've always said that this is your stage. Come use it. This is yours. Yeah. Have fun.
Yeah, no, and that has been always a great thing about the scene was, all the guys like, bands like yourselves and guys like yourselves and just everybody I have come across in the scene, up until today still has it. No one's ever gotten, major egos or, everyone's approachable. And I'll be honest with you, being in the music business as long as I've been, it's not always like that with a lot of, other scenes that have made, their mark in music, extreme music, where, there's something unique about New York hardcore with the people that
I
are,
think so too. We just played a cool show in Boston. It was a very private show where we put together a couple of guys from SSD Control and Agnostic Front. It was great at Bridge.
Nice.
It was from A7 to B9 right before the New York book signing. It was a Boston book signing. And there was there was people there and they brought their kids and stuff. And the kids are like, one kid came up to me, he's like, wow, this is amazing. I've been to about 20, 30 shows with my father, and I've never got to meet anyone or get up close to anyone. Like, this is like the first time he was able to approach a band and sit down and have a conversation and talk to them. The kid was blown away. And that's the way our music scene's always been. It's always been that way. You walk into the door, you could find one of us somewhere, standing somewhere, and talk to us, whatever, or come up in front of us, and and that's the beauty of New York hardcore, I think, and just about the whole punk hardcore scene worldwide.
Yeah, no doubt, man, no doubt. So, Victim in Pain, man, considered obviously by many as the album that started it all, considered, really New York hardcore's seminal record by so many. When did you start noticing that, not just the band, but, I mean the band, but also New York hardcore in general? When did you notice it really that it started to catch on elsewhere outside of New York and maybe the Northeast, when it really became global? Because that's exactly what it became, this global phenomenon. I mean, when did you guys start to see that this is really taking off?
Well, it's cool that you asked that. I mean, when you do get the book, and I encourage you all to get this book.
It's in the mail. It's coming mine. So just let you know, yeah.
After the second edition, it drops down 100 pages dramatically. So these are the ones you want to get. Trust me. I even mentioned it, like we went out and did our first American tour, and we came back, and we had a great going away party by New York. When we came back, we played our first and to always be from that point on sold out shows at CBGB's. And that's when we were like, wow, man, we really did something over here. Like, we just toured America. We represented New York hardcore on a full US tour. I think we were the only first one to ever do that, I think. And then came back and we were like the local heroes that did this, And then not only that, is just that, I think it's because, I mean, a lot of people can relate to a lot, especially lyrical wise in Victim in Pain. So we're talking about Victim in Pain. If you take those lyrics and you throw it in the ocean in a bottle, 100 years from now, somebody washes up, 100 years from now, somebody opens it up, reads it, you can relate to it. We talk about oppression, overcoming oppression. These are things people still deal with 40 years later than when I wrote it. You know what I mean? People still feel that way about stuff or so it's always going to be refreshing to someone or somebody, it's weird because I've had people, and that was the way that New York hardcore to me was like the first kind of in our genre of music that bridged the world, like you said. And I think it did that because of that oppression and overcome oppression and us talking about it. And people felt connected, like, wow, this band's really about this, about that. And they really mean it. Look, listen to this. Like, I want to be a part of that, stuff like that. So I think that was a very big, important record to bridge worldwide, like you said.
Yeah.
And honestly, to me, as a record collector, and people have always asked me, what's your top favorite 5 records? I always put Victim in Pain in there. I know it's my record. I know it's my record, but honestly, every time I put it on, it blows my mind. I can't even believe it's my record.
That's
I listen to it not as my record. I listen to it as a punk hardcore record. I'm like, this thing is banging,
Yeah.
No bad songs on it. It's great. And I enjoy it. You know what I mean? As much as my ASTV Control or my Misfits or whatever, like it's still like so relevant. And it's so like means it just hits so well, so good after all these years.
Agreed, man. No, 100% agreed. It's funny you just brought up, too, and a lot of New York hardcore guys I talked to from back in the day, they said, to them, their idea of making it back then, you kind of just alluded to this a little bit, was simply just playing at CB's, and to them it was like, okay, that's the gold standard and we're good. As long as we can play here, we're good. And it was, I know it took a little time for some, the hardcore bands to go, let's get out of here. Let's go and bridge this out and take this out further. What was it when you guys decided, like, you know what, man, like let's take this further? We know we've got New York, we've got the Northeast, sort of area, Boston, DC, you know, Pennsylvania, whatever. When was it where you're like, okay, you know, let's get out there? Was that after Victim of Pain? Was that during
Yes.
that? Okay, it was. Okay.
It was not that far after Victim of Pain was released around September of '84. We hit the road in, I want to say April, was it? May? No, maybe May. I can't remember the diary. I remember when it starts. I think May, June of that the next summer. But it was just like we were getting, we were getting a lot of letters sent to us, and we started making a connection with a lot of bands that would come in town, play with us, whatever. That's how it was. We had no internet back then.
Yeah.
It's a matter of writing and hey, could you book a show for us? You know, yeah, we want to do this, and we started arranging all this tour around the country on our own, not knowing what the hell we were doing. You know, we were calling card on a payphone, and there were a bunch of places we went to that didn't even exist. We had an app and everything, and then we get there, it's like a vacant lot. Like, I don't know, it's just a lot of, you know, like I said, that whole tour was an experience. You know, but I mean, and that, you know, it was wild. It was great. You know, like and coming back home felt so good too after that.
Oh, I'm sure it did. Yeah, after something, your first tour, especially. Well, yeah, and I think one of, you know, I'm just going to move on a little bit, but with, you know, you brought up Cause for Alarm. You know, I think one of the more, you know, underrated things about your guys' career, you know, and it's you know, obviously a lot of punk and hardcore purists. I know I've criticized the band over years for it, but it really is a lot of the you know, the more metallic stuff you guys have done. You know, obviously, Cause for Alarm was the first, you know, foray you guys did into that with the crossover thrash, but I thought, you know, Another Voice, I thought was a great record. And even, I mean, your last record, Get Loud, I thought was, you know, was really heavy too. I mean, so talk about the metal stuff that you guys have done. I mean, how important is it to the band's, I would say, legacy to not, of course, you're always going to have your footprint in punk and hardcore, but also to have it in the metal world, especially back, I know in the mid 80s when those scenes, you know, the scenes were basically oil and water just at each other's throats. How important is that to you guys to also be like, we also have our foot into the metal world too, and we got a legacy in that as well?
Well, yeah, it's very important. Like, I mean, Agnostic Front's always been leaders, not followers. You know what I mean? And we've done landmark records that have been pivotal and been the start of certain movements. For example, like you mentioned, Cause for Alarm. Cause for Alarm, I never knew it was going to sound like what it was going to sound, turn like it was going to turn out. You'll read about it in that book. You probably read about my autobiography. And I wasn't really comfortable with it. It took me a while to get comfortable. I got comfortable after the album. After it came out, I got comfortable with the songs because I was still doing songs and stuff in the studio. You know what I mean? But it's a very important record. It's a huge record. It's probably bigger than Victim of Pain. No, all kidding aside. And it actually bridged that scene. It brought all the metal kids to our shows who and then of course some of the hardcore elitist people were like, oh, whatever. But you know what's funny? A lot of those hardcore elitist people end up doing records that were kind of metallic sounding right after.
Right, go figure.
That's what I'm trying to tell you. Like when you said all this stuff, and I listened to your record, you know, every one of those bands, I'll name them all. They all did the same type of thing, you know. And that's kind of interesting, you know. Even with One Voice, for example, that was on the forefront of what you call new school hardcore at the time, you know what I mean? And if you pull my vocals out and the leads out of One Voice and put Freddie's vocals in, you got a Madball record, pretty much. It's kind of like that, you know what I mean? Like it was a start for that generation and that to go forward with, you know what I mean? So it's important. Look, I love music. I don't sit specifically and say I'm going to write a song, but I'm not going to write a song like this. I'm going to write whatever feels good to me, honestly. And we tour a lot. We toured a lot of bands that are a lot of metal bands, punk bands, and we subliminally, sometimes unconsciously or whatever, we influence each other. I can't sit here and say, well, you know, everybody does say Agnostic Front is a big influence, whatever, but all these other bands influence us too, you know. And that's what happened with that crossover big movement. Like all of a sudden, like we were liking stuff that Exodus or Slayer or Metallica were doing, and they were liking stuff like, for example, Carnivore. We were like Carnivore's loving us, and they were writing like a punk record. We're writing like a metal record. You know, it's just the true common denominator here was loud, extreme, fast music. I mean, if it wasn't for the difference of long hair versus no hair, spike hair, or mohawk, we all dressed the same in black. We
Mhm.
all were outcasts of society, both scenes. We walked parallel to each other, you know what I mean? So the only difference was the hair. Other than that, we all loved the super aggressive, crazy music. It said something to us. It made us feel alive. So it's important. Absolutely.
Yeah, no doubt, man. You know, I'm gonna get to your two things here, your voice and your lyrics. So we'll start with your voice. You know, it's obviously really iconic and unique, and when you hear it, you know it's you. You know, what I mean, there's no way it sounds like you. There's, listening to those classic records. I mean, you could hear the evolution of it and how your voice progressed over the years to where it became, how it is today. At what point was it where you were like, okay, this is my voice, that you felt like found it, or the way you envisioned it, or whatever? I mean, talk about that.
Honestly, I've never felt comfortable with any recording. I've never
Oh,
felt,
wow.
even if I don't think Agnostic Front's ever been a studio band.
Okay.
We do records,
Mhm.
and but we're a live band.
Mhm.
And if you listen to us
Sure.
play all those songs from all the different records at one live show, you're like, holy shit, this. We've always been a live band, capturing us, capturing our moment, capturing our peak. It's always been live, so it's weird, it's like the studio. It's good to write your music or whatever, but I've never felt comfortable in the studio. And I don't like listening to myself. I always fight with them. Put me lower in the mix. Put me lower in the, I always fight with them. But I can't. Even live, when we play live, I fight with the sound man. Like, make the band powerful. To me, it was always about the power of the band, and the vocals added to it, but it was always that you want to get hit over the head with bats, with the bats being the music, you know what I mean?
Sure.
They want to beat you with it, you know what I mean? So to me, like, I don't know, vocals, that was always been a weird thing to me. Like, I didn't know, hey, look, I didn't know what I was doing when I joined the band, and I was just screaming. I screamed all the way along till I still scream today. It's not like I warm up or do anything. Like, I'm conscious of my voice. If anything, I'm just going out there and doing my thing. But like I said, we're more of a live band.
Sure. No doubt. Now, lyrically, over the years, you of course, back in the day, got some criticism for your lyrics, really just for simply telling it like it is, coming from,
No one wants to
this.
hear anything like it is.
Sorry, say it again. I couldn't hear you.
Nobody likes to hear anything as it
No,
is.
and you're right, and they don't, even back then and still to today, especially, obviously.
And another thing is, people live in different parts of the world. They don't understand. Like, if you're walking in my shoes, it's a different world. Like you could live somewhere else and you don't have those same experiences. And I'm telling you a story about my experiences, me walking this path, walking in these boots and these shoes, whatever. This is what's going on. So it's hard. Sometimes people can't relate to it, but sometimes people don't want to hear the honest truth about stuff. And a lot of the vocals, lyric wise, is just that. It's a straight up truth, and yeah, there were some that were very controversial, and I didn't write those. By the fact, as a matter of fact, there were the Pete Steele lyrics. I guess I wasn't in a band at the time, and he was writing stuff. But some of it was in stuff he had talked to me about, and he was going to write. And I understood some of it because I'm Latin, I'm Hispanic, and I've seen some of this hypocritical stuff right before my eyes. Like the benefits one side gets from the other. I always believe in equality of all people. I grew up among all types of religion and race and everything. I live in an apartment building in New York City where you had to live with everyone. Like, I didn't see any of this weird segregation and weird stuff till I actually started touring, and more in suburban places where you could actually, this area. In New York City, you're like living on top of each other. Like, you better figure out how to live live with each other, and there's this mutual respect of one another, or just ignore, don't give a fuck. You can walk over a dead body in New York City, nobody will give a shit.
I know. Oh yeah, I know.
That's how it was back then.
It was. I know.
Now you just hop over the body, eventually, whatever. So it's just weird, man. It's just like I say, if Agnostic Front was from anywhere else in America, we probably wouldn't sound the way we sound, and we wouldn't tell those stories we are. What makes us what we are is that we come from New York City, and like the same goes for bands that come from like Detroit or something like that. They're doing their thing, singing their thing. That's their life experiences,
Yeah.
So it's hard when people try to relate to everything. It's hard for you to relate with something with your upbringing and my upbringing. But I try to kind of, like, I try to stay away from politics. at least world politics. You know, I
Mhm.
talk about a lot of social,
Sure.
political, of course.
Well, I think that's what's good too. Yeah, I mean, what I love about if you did to me at least when you sung about politics, it was just it was like the old school, just anti-government in general. It wasn't a
Exactly, man.
bipartisan thing, the way it is now and shit.
Like
Yeah.
I love this country. I love America. I still do, but I don't trust the government, man.
No, of course not.
And if
Yeah.
it does, then that's on
Mhm.
them. You know, so
Mhm.
that never has changed. So
Mhm.
people be like, "Oh, you're this." I'm like, "Yeah, I wouldn't want to live anywhere else." And I
Mhm.
have my freedom of speech. I can say what I want to say, and I respect people's opinions. And I love a good debate. I love to talk. I learn every time from just a simple debate or talking with somebody. And of course, I've said things I today I would never say that I've said back then or whatever. It's
Mhm.
just I'm living differently now, and I understand things differently. And I'm not that that careless young kid, and I see things differently now. As you grow up, you see things differently. You see different opinions and stuff. You got to have an open mind, man. That you can't. Everybody can't be the same. It'll become boring.
Sure. Yep.
It's
Agreed.
like I always said that be yourself, be true to yourself, be genuine to yourself. Look in the mirror. If you can look in the mirror and you feel like, yeah, I'm 100% me, whatever, then that's all good with me. This is hardcore.
Yeah, no doubt. Now, do you think the way things are today, socially, if the Agnostic Front was you guys were starting out and who you are, then and you were coming up today, would you be welcomed into the scene, let alone be one of the leaders of it? I mean, what do you think? How would that would be?
Well, I like to say this: if the Sex Pistols were a band today, they'd be canceled tomorrow.
Oh yes, I know.
We
It's
come from a
crazy.
world.
Uh,
My upbringing and Vinny's upbringing is from a time and a place where politically incorrect was correct.
yeah, yeah.
But that being said, it was a time and a place.
Mhm.
And today, it's a different time and a place. And that's what I'm trying to say is maybe some of the stuff we did back then for attention or for, fuck you, fuck the system, whatever, or just chaos would
Mhm.
be approached a little bit differently. Here's a classic example, true story. It's in my book. I once took this pail, metal garbage pail, and I threw it through a McDonald's window. Fuck the system, fuck all this shit.
Mhm.
Will I do it today? There's cameras everywhere.
Yeah,
Will I
shit,
do
no.
it today? No, but I might maybe late at night, really late, maybe at 5, 6 in the morning, go up to where the door is and maybe take some glue, put a toothpick, put it in the spindle. So I just give the manager a hard time getting in that day. And I
Mhm.
disrupted the system. I'm just
Mhm.
saying, I mean, that's how sometimes you think differently.
Yeah.
But when I was a kid, I didn't give a shit. That garbage can was going right through the window, broad daylight,
Mhm.
broad daylight.
Yeah.
You know what I
Mhm.
mean? But
Mhm.
it was a different time, a different place.
Yeah.
I'm lucky enough to have been at that time in that place because I'll tell you something, man. What a magical and beautiful place and time to live. It really
I
was. And it was a complete freedom of speech, freedom of whatever you want. We ran the Lower East Side. We ran our lives, and it was just incredible. Today, I don't know. I don't even know if I'd want to start a band today. It'd be
Mhm.
hard to start a band. You'd have to probably put some duct tape on your mouth and go in a straitjacket because you can't say anything anymore.
No.
I don't really give a shit. I say what I got to say. I do what I got to do because that's just me.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, it is interesting, a lot of, the New York hardcore, bands and people just, like yourself who started the scene that don't live in New York anymore, and it's not the same. I mean, I've grown up there myself. I mean, I was, a little bit younger than I'm, just short of shy of 50. But growing up there myself, it's like I was just back there in September, and it's just not, it's
it's
not
not
the
the
same, man.
same.
It's not the same. It's not even close to being the
It's not
same.
even close. You know something? I was just looking at pictures the other day from 1983, the Lower East Side. That's not that long ago.
Mm-hmm.
That's not that long ago. It does not look anywhere in remote. Like
Oh, no.
people have come up to me like that visit New York recently, and they're like, I don't understand your lyrics. It doesn't make sense. Well, it's not the same.
Mm-hmm.
There used to be one building standing in every block.
Yeah.
It looked like a bomb hit every block back then.
Mm-hmm.
And it was people I was living in those abandoned buildings, and it was drug shoot up spots. It's not the same.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, it's gone beyond anywhere or anything I think I would want to live with. Like it's just it's not doesn't feel the same. And especially when I started having children and stuff, I'm like, it's unaffordable. So I
Oh,
moved
that
to
too.
a place where I could, raise a family, and not, and not in a tiny little coop apartment with nothing, fourth floor walk up to what I had, and craziness, So I just wanted something a little bit different. Plus, I had a couple things going for me. You have your rules, your law, my criminal history. I mean, I don't want to talk about my criminal history, but you know what I'm saying? Well, I already am. You sometimes you just want to get away from all that stuff that drives you crazy.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, I mean, and even if you were in a band, a hardcore band, I mean, there's probably no places to play. I mean, it's like
Oh, it's
where
hard.
I don't think there's any
I
places in
was
the
just
city.
there and I couldn't
You know?
believe all the bike lanes. Like,
Oh man,
I want to sign a petition to get every single bicycle out of New York City.
oh god,
I can't believe it.
that's insane. I know.
It's like, and then you say
Yeah.
stuff like, there's no New Yorkers in New York, and people are like, oh, why do you say that? Well, it's the truth. I don't think there's anybody. When I was living there was families.
Yeah.
There were families in those
generations that grew up there too,
Yeah,
and
there's
everything.
no
Yeah.
families there anymore.
No.
They can't afford it.
Yeah.
It's not even their fault. They got
I know.
moved out, or nobody could have. You can't afford. I mean, unless you got a lot of money to live there with a family or some crazy rent control situation. It's unaffordable.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's unfortunate. I know. So, I mean, speaking about unfortunate, I know this year, the New York hardcore family, received some shitty news regarding, sick of it all frontman Luke Kohler, obviously. It looks like he's doing pretty well in his recovery, with his cancer diagnosis right now. But I know, of course, you went through obviously that yourself, a similar experience, having beaten cancer a handful of years ago yourself, Roger. Talk a bit, a little bit about your journey with that. I mean, what advice have you given Lou? What would you give him to just to get through it and fight through this thing?
I talked to Lou very briefly, and I understand. And I told him, "Hey, look, I'm here for you. I'm here if you want to talk about anything. But if some people approach things differently, and myself, I chose to really like. It's really weird when you hear those news. I reintroverted myself. I didn't want to talk to nobody. I didn't want to know. I just didn't want to talk to nobody. I just wanted to be myself with all my thoughts, And of course, in all that GoFundMe and stuff, I was very grateful of all that stuff. But it's still like I was fighting all this stuff, and I didn't want people to see me and tubes hanging out of me and stuff like that. And it's just weird. It's just like I needed to be by myself again and recapture all my thoughts. And I think he's going through a little bit of that. He's trying to touch base here and there to let people know he's doing good. I know the world's the outcry for people that love him has been humongous. The same for myself. So we're in good places. There's a lot of love and support for people like myself, like Lou, New York hardcore, and stuff like that. You know what I mean? So all I could say is like, don't ever get discouraged if like someone's going through that stuff and they don't want to talk to you, whatever. It's just, some people just need their space, their time. I was so grateful to go back out and tour. I mean, I would talk about it. I'm doing and tour, and I would go to tears. I break down. You know what I mean? Like that's how emotionally of a content it is. You know what I mean? So I get it. So let them do what they got to do, and hopefully, it all works out for Lou. I think it is. Hopefully he could get back out there and do his thing. That's where he'd rather be. And I knew that's where I'd rather be.
Sure. No, absolutely, man. Yeah. So, I mean, Roger, man, when you sit there, and you look back, and we talked a little bit about this before, but you look back at what you and Vinny have accomplished with Agnostic Front over the years. You turned something that was meant to be, like I think you mentioned, just a bunch of rowdy, misfit kids in New York City having fun with each other, to what it eventually became, which was, not only this driving force and extreme, rock music, but it became just as much, if not more, about the lifestyle, the hardcore lifestyle for many people across the globe, regardless of the music. How surprised, if at all, were you that, your guys' philosophy and way of life became just as, if not more important than your music itself from the band?
You know what? Honestly, Matt, the way things have happened for us, we never planned anything, there was never like, okay, we're going to sit down, we're going to make a plan, we're going to have this agenda, and this is what we're going to do. We've been just going we just go with it. Just go with it. We've been living our basically what would be someone's retirement. Like, people work, just to finally go see the world when they're 65, 67. By that time, their bodies can't handle it. They can't really enjoy life like they should have. We've been enjoying our life this whole time. We've been living this incredibly journey. I mean, touring, seeing the world, just doing things that only people could dream of. I mean, it's been a lot of ups and downs. It's been a roller coaster ride, and it's just amazing that we've done this with our lives, So, and that being said, there was never a plan like for it to be anything different than just, a few guys on the road having a great time, playing music, playing what we love, doing really what we love is our passion. As long as there's a demand for Agnostic Front would always be there. The minute it doesn't become fun or something, like, what's the point? We actually enjoy it. We enjoy going out there, making friends, meeting people, playing. When we hit the stage, I mean, you can see it. You can see Vinny smiling, doing his thing. You can see me and him. We actually enjoy it,
Well, he just turned 69. So is he going to is he doing this till he drops dead or what?
Oh man, I think so. I remember when he was turning 40, and for a minute I was like, oh man, I would look at I don't want to be 40 still doing this, I would say that. I swear to God. Yeah. I would say that. And I'm like, all right, I'll do it. And then when he hits 40, then he hits 45. Come on, Roger, if I'm all right, 50, all right. And next thing you know, I'm trapped. Now I'm 60, I'm like, oh man, I'm hoping that old kook hangs in there.
Oh, that's good. Well, speaking of, anything you guys got new in the works at all with music or festivals or tour?
In the works.
You do? Fantastic.
We're gonna go record it next month.
Oh, fantastic.
We don't stop. I mean, it's just that we love what we do, So we've been writing and getting ready to lay it all down next month and go at it again. Other than that, like I said, I did my autobiography. I have this now with Time, which is a beautiful visual book of the band's history, pretty much at the beginning, which is the footprints of New York hardcore, the footprints of us, you know what I mean? And then Vinny's book, after doing my book, Vinny book, then I came out with this. This was a time, a very well timed for this thing to come out, like I wanted to share all that with my friends and fans all over the world. I could have kept this all to myself and kept it in the same trunks I keep it in, but why not? People want to see this stuff,
Oh yeah. No, it's people love this stuff. Absolutely, man. I'm glad you're doing it. And, in the meantime, obviously, before we get some new Agnostic Front music, the viewers and listeners out there, you can go ahead and go pick up a copy of the new book with Time, the Roger Miret Archives. It's out now for purchase. A great gift for Christmas and the holidays. So, Roger, where should we send everyone to purchase a copy of this great book?
I'll tell you right now, RevHQ.com has it right now. And I just, for the first time yesterday, I started getting these texts from my friends, and they're like blown away. They're like, wow, you set the bar with this stuff. You know what I mean? And they're like, everybody's really, I'm getting a lot of great feedback from it. And like I say, we're almost done. We did 1,200 for the first edition. Wanted to keep it low, keep it special. You know what I mean? So they got. I know the deluxe is sold out, which was a special edition, which it was just it just contained more stuff, and it was, it's a pretty pricey book, but people wanted everything with it. The book itself out right now. This one, the regular version, first edition, regular version. Rev HQ has it. They have some in stock. I would go there as soon as you can and order and get it right. Hopefully get it right in time before Christmas. It's 4.5 pounds. So expect a big brick under the tree.
Fantastic. Once again, with Time, the Roger Miret Archives. It's out now. Go check it out, everybody. And hey, Roger, man, I really appreciate you coming on the show, man, and talking to me. And good luck with the book and everything. And hope to see you and Vinny back on tour soon, man.
We will be. We're on tour in March, April.
Okay.
I had an interest in music always.
It's always kind of been around me some way, shape, or form.
5 minutes sitting on a drum set, man, change your life.
This is the same black guitar that Marty McFly plays in Back to the Future.
I love the feeling I get in front of the freaking full stack here, just the vibration or something to it.
I'm lucky because I do have a little bit of a tap into the Fu Manchu lore, into the Nebula lore.
In order to keep things going, you kind of have to like start playing the game a little bit, you know, like the business game.
Everybody has to get through a day-to-day, and how do you exist and how do you get by?
As far as getting people to commit to bands, it's tough to keep a lot together these days, for sure.
Still sleeping on people's floor, that's still a reality.
Probably also playing with some of the best people I've ever played with. The creative juices don't stop. It just keeps going.
For me, it's just finding a balance of how much time I'm spending with my family versus how much time I'm spending working.
It's this validation that what you're doing actually has merit.
Obviously, we're a little long in the tooth, and we've been doing this for a minute, and now we can kind of do what we want. We don't need a record company. I'll do it myself. I'll do it the way I want to.
Just always be cool. Just be respectful. Those are your people. They're connecting to you on some level, even if they don't look like you.
It's got to happen, you know, or else I'll go crazy. Go crazy one way or another, you know. I might as well, you know, not go crazy if I can play music.
Maybe one day I'll have a Porsche, but you know, until that day, I'll drive a Chevy.
There you go.
All right.